Arsenal have beaten Chelsea 1-0 at Stamford Bridge. Well done to them. It's a good result and an excellent performance from Arsenal. What I think we saw in this game was an example of Arsenal being tactically excellent, completely keeping Chelsea at bay, and Mikel Arteta has orchestrated all of this. Almost everything you saw was deliberate from how Arsenal played, and there's lots of deviations in what they did. So we're going to explore how Arteta set his team up, what was maybe going wrong with Chelsea in this game, what's happened to them the last couple of Premier League games under Graham Potter. And if you enjoy what I say and like any of our videos on Tifo IRL, do please go and subscribe. We'd love it if you did. And also like the video, that's helpful. And you can turn, when you subscribe, you can push the bell notifications thing so you're always notified when we upload new videos. Do that. Yes, thank you. Now, let's look at what Arsenal were doing, what Chelsea were doing. So Chelsea, we'll start with them actually. So Graham Potter's had to change his system a few times. He's got principles of play where he wants to create a box midfield, he wants to keep the ball and be able to press at certain times. But it's more of a 4-2-3-1 in this game. And the weird thing that I thought about this was that the 4-2-3-1 was almost lopsided. So you had Aubameyang was clearly the striker, we'll put him up here. Then Sterling was playing on wide right in the space outside of Zinchenko, around about here. Then Havertz was, I think, a 10, but he was more or less meant to go and help an overload, create an overload on this right side, or drop to the left to help create an overload on the other side. But then you also had Mason Mount, who was playing as a 10, but also was the left-sided forward. But he was mostly getting dragged to these sort of positions here. So what you have is a very lopsided 4-2-3-1. Let's put them up here. And then you'll notice that there's not very much width on this side for Chelsea. They're missing any player here to be able to provide width on that side. Now, Cucurella is the left-sided defender here. So what I think maybe Potter thought might happen was that Cucurella could push up here, provide the width, so you've got that front five over here. Eventually Mount can go in these spaces between Benjamin White and Saliba. But then that would mean that Silva can come across, Chalobah can drop in here, and Azpilicueta, who of course can play as a centre-back as well as a full-back, can drop in to form a 3 and protect. That's maybe some of the thinking behind it, but it didn't happen at all. Because Cucurella was kept very much stuck here because Saka was there. He was playing excellently in this game, just playing the outside of Cucurella, always staying wide. Saka and Martinelli always staying wide. Now, another reason I think Potter's opted for this kind of lopsided front 3 here, or yeah, 3 behind the 1, is because when you're looking at your opposition where their strengths are, the clear strength and the threat from Arsenal is going to be Gabriel Martinelli and the counter-attack especially. So if Chelsea could push them back, he's then able to just zip in behind and cause all sorts of problems getting across here. So if you can stop that at source by surrounding him by players like with Sterling, maybe Azpilicueta pushing up a little bit, you might be able to stop the ball getting from, you can stop the play starting really. You want to stop Arsenal's build-up. So when they're building from the back, if they can't get the ball to Martinelli to be able to go and run straight behind, they might be all right. Of course, you've got Chalobah can come across and defend against it if they push the fullback slightly higher. But Martinelli got a lot of the ball anyway in this left side because Arsenal focused most of their play down this left side. Almost everything came down there, and it's a consequence of Chelsea being stacked on that side, but also Arsenal focusing play down that side. And so Cucurella's absence here meant later on in the game, they had no width, so they couldn't stretch the play, they couldn't get the ball out to him, they couldn't get the ball through to their strikers, and Arsenal kept them kind of at bay. That's some of the theory behind what I think Graham Potter was trying to do with his team, lacking the left from Cucurella, and that has knock-on effects later on, which I can show you. But something else that happened was that they kept having their midfield being empty, because what he wants to do with this kind of shape is create a box midfield that we talked about earlier. So the box midfield looks a bit like this. We'll just draw a little box. Now you know what a box looks like. So the box midfield means, in theory, that you've got an overload against Arsenal's midfield 3. The Jesus drops in, obviously you create a 4 on the outside of it. But that's kind of what he wants to do. He wants to have these, and he's got wide right width from Sterling. You can maybe get in behind as you draw players in to play with this. Again, is that maybe what he's trying to do? It didn't work, basically. They just got overrun. Arsenal had loads of the ball, and they were playing it wide and making sure they had numbers on the outside of Chelsea, which then dragged Chelsea's midfield apart. As we can see an example in a minute, they often get dragged so far apart that it looks a bit like this, with loads of space between one section of the team up here and one section of the team back here. Not as big as this, because that's, you know, it's an example. Anyway, Arsenal. Let's have a look at Arsenal. So Arsenal, we know how they play this season. We've got some videos on Tifo IRL if you want to try and see some of the other videos that we've done on them and how they play. But in this game particularly, a couple of interesting things I noticed. Like normal, Martinelli stays wide, Saka stays wide, playing the outside of Cucurella, keeping him at bay, as in B-A-Y, not with his beloved. Now, Jesus was playing as a striker. We know he swaps around with some of their players. But what you have is a midfield 3 here. In build-up in this game, what happened often was, rather than having the midfield 3 filled by Zinchenko, Partey and White, so they often do this, they invert the 2 fullbacks. Instead, what tended to happen was a little reversal. Gabriel would go over to the left, Saliba would come over as the central centre-back, and then Benjamin White, likes to be called Benjamin, would be here. So that's your 3. Then you'd have Zinchenko playing very, very narrow with Partey here, which then means Saka's out here, so you can get Odegaard to help get a double, not an overload, but double up over this right side here. Xhaka can go over to help with Martinelli on the other side over here. And this is where they were getting their joy. Let's try and get Chelsea looking more like they did. A bit like that, yeah. So you can see, because Arsenal were able to create this kind of 2v1 at times. It was 2v2, because then Loftus-Cheek would come out. That leaves this bit here in the middle empty, because it's just Jorginho. And Odegaard would be over here with Cucurella. And then Mount had to try and drop back in to get back into here. And that left Aubameyang, Havertz, and Sterling as the forward section here. And there's just no dialogue between them and the rest of the Chelsea team. So then Zinchenko would help out and join into this final third here, and then what this would then create for Arsenal is a bit of a, we'll call it a flexible triangle, lots of rotations between these 3 players, because Martinelli can go over here, Zinchenko can come in here, maybe Xhaka can swap with Zinchenko. Lots of rotations from these 3 players here that were able to cause problems for Chelsea. But Chelsea are a good team, they were able to, there wasn't loads of chances. Arsenal missed a couple of big chances in the game, one of which was from Jesus. And I think we can see some of the things at play. Obviously, there's a bit of a mess now. Let's pull them back a little bit. And because all this is changing all over the pitch, you'll see that even this here, it was a 3 and a 2, and then Zinchenko joins in here. Maybe he goes into here. Zinchenko was able to position himself between lines so that Arsenal could play out from the back, through to this sort of player with Zinchenko, and he can turn, and then they've got an overload with all these players, and that's how they were then following up by pushing up with lots of aggressive defending so that Chelsea couldn't get out, couldn't get into their strikers. Aubameyang was anonymous, Havertz couldn't get in the ball, and that's how Arsenal able to keep them quiet for a lot of the game. There's a lot more to it than this. I'm just trying to give you a brief kind of overview. But we see some of the things we talked about. So Chelsea's midfield being emptied, Arsenal doubling up in the wide areas, and then getting Jesus to drop in the back post to try and take advantage of Chelsea being stacked on this side. So we see Arsenal was stacking their play down this left side. Chelsea were set up to try and deal with that by being stacked on the right-hand side. Arsenal's rest defence shape was pushing Chelsea on the outside, but if you're playing on the outside like this, it's very hard to get the ball to you. There's a high press from Arsenal like there was. The only real option is to chip it long. If you chip it long, it's a slow pass, which gives you the chance for a centre-back to come across and deal with you before you can cause any damage. So Arsenal had every single outlet that Chelsea were trying to use covered, and then able to move the ball very well in the final third. And I'll show you exactly what it looks like when this midfield empties and Arsenal attack down the left-hand side, because here's an example of a chance that Gabriel Jesus misses inside the box. So you see very empty in the midfield from Chelsea here. They've been stretched, they're really big and wide because they're being pulled apart by players either side on each wing. Arsenal have, I think this is Martinelli, this is Xhaka, this is Zinchenko. So they are pulling out up this left-hand side here. This is your back 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. The defenders, the midfielder, I think it's midfielder here. So they're in a bit of trouble. Now, they played on the left-hand side like we say. Just try and deal with it, but then we start getting the rotations from the midfielders in that final third, which is why they create space by dragging players out of position so they can thread passes through. Because they're then focused on this left-hand side during this quick attack, it means that Gabriel Jesus can float in behind the fullback and the centre-back. Odegaard's got it spaced out here. Look, they're just ready to stop the counter. And then the ball comes in, Jesus just misses the header. Could probably have scored that if he'd been a tiny bit taller. But you can't grow during a football game. Yes. So in summary, basically what I'm trying to say here is that I think Mikel Arteta got everything right here and planned all of it. He knew exactly how Chelsea were going to play out from the back. He had planned to deal with the box midfield, this sort of thing that we talked about earlier. I'm going to draw a box for you again, I like drawing boxes. So all this meant that Arsenal had players spare to be able to receive the ball, to move it along. They defended really well, loads of aggression, and later in the game, when Chelsea discovered that they just couldn't get Aubameyang in the game, he wasn't dropping in enough, there was no one in this left space to help stretch it either. So they took Aubameyang off, like that. And then they brought on Armando Broja. He came in up here. He was getting more involved, dropping deep in this position here. Chelsea were able to find him. Then he could make a move to try and get in behind. But he was then taken off the ball by Arsenal's excellent defenders. Basically everything that Potter wanted to do, this team couldn't. They're a team in transition, so this is natural, it'll take time. They're a bit slow to pass and get in the right positions. Arsenal are so well drilled, really flexible, loads of rotations, lots of players in different positions to be able to facilitate attacking moves. They look good, they are really good for top spots just now. Something special might be happening at Arsenal. They couldn't win the league, could they? Maybe you should leave a comment and like the video to say you think they shall. Or, I don't know, just do whatever you do. Anyway, that's Arsenal versus Chelsea. Arsenal win. Goodbye.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including David Ornstein, Daniel Taylor, Ollie Kay, Amy Lawrence and Rafa Honigstein. There are journalists dedicated to each Premier League team, so every fan gets the coverage they deserve, not just the big clubs. And you can try it for free now for 30 days. See the link in the description.